The last years of Alysanne Targaryen were sad and lonely ones. In her youth, good Queen Alysanne had loved her subjects, lords and common folk alike. She had her women's courts, listening, learning and doing what she could to make the realm a kinder place to all. She had seen more of the Seven Kingdoms than any queen before or since, slept in 100 castles, charmed 100 lords, and made 100 marriages. She had loved music, had loved to dance, had loved to read, and most of all, she had loved to fly. Silverwing had carried her to Old Town, to the Wall, and to 1,000 places in between, and Alysanne saw them all as few others ever would, looking down on them from above. All these loves were lost to her in the last decade of her life. My uncle Maegor was cruel, Alysanne was heard to say, but age is even crueler. Worn out from childbirth, travel and grief, she grew thin and frail after Aemon's death. Climbing hills became a trial to her, and in 95 AC she slipped and fell on the serpentine steps, breaking her hip. Thereafter, she had to walk with a cane. Her hearing began to fail as well. Music was lost to her, and when she tried to sit in on the small council meetings with the king, she could no longer understand half of what was being said. She was far too uneasy to fly. Silverwing last carried her into the sky in 93 AC. When she came to Earth again and climbed painfully from her dragon's back, the queen wept, knowing that she would never fly again. More than all of this, however, she had loved her children most of all. No mother ever loved a child more, Grand Maester Bennifer once told her, but the shivers carried Bennifer away. In the last days of her life, Queen Alysanne reflected on his words. He was wrong, I think, she wrote, for surely the mother above loved my children more than me. She took so many of them away. No mother should ever have to burn her child, the queen had said at the funeral pyre of her son, Valerian. But of the 13 children she bore to King Jaehaerys, only 3 of them would grow to outsurvive her. Aegon, Gaemon, and Vaeron died as babies. The shivers took Daenerys at the age of 6. Crossbow slew Prince Aemon. Alyssa and Daela died in childbirth, with Sarah drunk in the street. The gentle soul of Septa Maegella died in 96 AC, her arms and legs turned to stone by grayscale, as she had spent her last years nursing those afflicted with the horrible condition. Saddest of all was the loss of Princess Gale, the Winter Child, born in 80 AC when Queen Alysanne was 44 and thought to be well past her childbearing years. A sweet-natured girl, but frail and somewhat simple-minded, she remained with the queen long after her other children had grown and gone. But in 99 AC, she vanished from court, and soon afterwards it was announced that she had died of a summer fever. It was only after both Jaehaerys and Alysanne were gone did the truth of the tale finally come out. Seduced and abandoned by a travelling singer, the princess had given birth to a stillborn son. Then, overwhelmed by grief, walked into the waters of Blackwater Bay and drowned. Some say that Alysanne never recovered from the loss, for her winter child alone had been her true companion during her declining years. Sarah still lived, somewhere in Volantis. She had departed Lys some years before, an infamous woman, but a wealthy one, but she was dead to Jaehaerys, and the letters Alysanne sent her, scarcely from time to time, all went unanswered. Vaegon was an archmaester at the Citadel, a cold and distant son. He had grown to be a cold and distant man. He wrote, his words were dutiful, but there was no warmth to them, and it had been years since Alysanne had last seen his face. Only Balon the Brave remained near her, till the end. Her spring prince visited her as often as he could, and always won a smile from her. Balon was the Prince of Dragonstone now, hand of the king, forever coming and going, sitting at his father's side at council, treating with the lords. You will be a great king, even greater than your father, Alysanne told him. The last time they saw each other, she did not know. How could she know what was to come? After the death of Princess Gale, King's Landing and the Red Keep became unbearable to Alysanne. She could no longer serve as she once had, as a partner to the king in his labours, and the court was full of strangers whose names Alysanne could not quite recall. Seeking peace, she returned once more to Dragonstone, where she had spent the happiest days of her life, between their first and second marriages. The old king would join her there, when he could. How is it that I am the old king now, but you are still good queen? He asked her once. Alysanne laughed. I am old as well, but I am still younger than you. Alysanne Targaryen, the good queen, died on Dragonstone on the first day of the 7th moon of 100 AC, a full century after Aegon's conquest. She was 64 years old. There will never again be another queen of her sort, and her influence on the Seven Kingdoms cannot be understated.